Back to the daily grind, and y'all know we gotta talk about this. But before we do, make sure you hit subscribe if you're new and hit thumbs up if you're not a baby back bagel biting bitch boy, cause you know what time it is. It's full time.
MMA.
Yo, full-time family, let me start this off by apologizing for the lighting in here. Long story short, my next door neighbor's electricity got shut off, so for some reason that affects this fucking room. And yeah, so no lights, but I can get a lamp. That's what we're rocking with, but that's not the important part, because what we're really here for are the UFC London predictions. This whole card is on Fight Pass. There's going to be a lot of Fight Pass prelims and then the Fight Pass main card. And there's a lot of fights I'm interested in on both of those, but this is going to be the predictions just for the main card. And as you can see, if you tuned into the live chat earlier where we just, did a little bit of research on these fights, I thought we were going to be picking Werdum to get the W. But after further research, before I fired up this prediction video, yo, Alexander Volkov. Yo, I'm gonna show you guys what led me to change my prediction, and some of you might as well. Honestly, I might be putting some money on Alexander Volkov this weekend. I'm not fucking around. I'm going to show you guys some stuff. But first, let's get into it's a 4-fight main card. Let's start off with Leon Edwards versus Peter Sabata. Peter Sabata is 17-5-1 in his professional career. So 17 wins, 5 losses, 4 wins and 4 losses in the UFC. Now, Peter Sabata is 4-1 since 2014, but he's only been fighting about 1 time per year. And it's an interesting fact, actually, back in 2010, Peter Sabata, entered the UFC, fought on a 3-fight losing streak, and then he left the UFC. I don't know if he was cut or if he just left, but he was a 3-fight losing streak. Then he came back about 4 or 5 years later, and that's where you see him now. He's 4-1 since coming back to the UFC. But like I said, he's only been fighting about 1 time per year. He is on a 2-fight winning streak over Nicholas Dalby and Ben Saunders, though. But he's going to be fighting Leon Edwards, who's at home. Leon Edwards is the number 15th ranked welterweight in the world. 14 wins, 3 losses in his professional career. 6-2 in the UFC in about the same time since Peter Sabata has been back. So that means Leon Edwards been more active. He's been fighting about 2 times a year. Leon Edwards is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. His only loss came to Kamaru Usman, who is a dominant force in the welterweight division, but can't find higher ranked opponents to move up and prove how Kamaru Usman can't find a match to move up and prove his skills. So he's sitting at about the number 7th or number 9th ranked welterweight, maybe even number 11th, but Kamaru Usman probably could beat a lot of the guys in the top 10, but not being given that opportunity. So he did fight Leon Edwards, who he beat. Now Leon Edwards is going to be fighting Peter Sabata here. Leon Edwards is on a 4-fight winning streak since losing to Kamaru Usman. He's got wins over Dominic Wader, Albert Tumanov, Vicente Luque, and Brian Barberena, and he's been fighting, as I said, about 2 times per year. So I'm going to be picking Leon Edwards to get the win here. I think Leon Edwards has a lot of skill, as his 4-fight winning streak shows. But I mean, if you think about the welterweight division, if he wanted to be higher ranked in the division, it might be kind of hard. I mean, you see guys like Darren Till and Kamaru Usman. These young up-and-coming guys are having hard times finding fights with these guys that don't want to lose their spot in the top 10. So a lot of these guys in the top, 10 through 15 of the welterweight division probably should be in the top 10, but they're not being given that opportunity, so they have to keep fighting these unranked dudes until they are given an opportunity, like Darren Till was given when he fought Donald Cerrone. Now that Darren Till fought Donald Cerrone, he'll probably be given a better opportunity. He's got a lot more star power. But unfortunately for Kamaru Usman and Leon Edwards so far, it's probably going to be hard for them to get Donald Cerrone or one of those opportunities, and until they do, they'll probably be fighting the Emil Meks and the Peter Sabatas of the world, guys that are trying to take their spot. So Peter Sabata is going to be trying to take Leon Edwards' spot in the top 15, but it's going to be tough. I'm picking Leon Edwards, who's also at home. So now, moving into the next fight, Terrion Ware versus Tom Duquesnoy, the Fire Kid. Terrion the Flash Ware is 17 wins, 6 losses. He's 0-2 in the UFC. He lost both of his UFC fights, but to very talented fighters. Terrion Ware, you might remember, most recently lost to Sugar Sean O'Malley, and then before that, he lost his UFC debut to Cody Stamann. Both of those guys are formidable opponents. We've seen Sean O'Malley most recently beat Andre Sukumthoth at UFC 222, and we saw Cody Stamann at the same UFC 222 got a win over Brian Caraway to move into the top 10. So Terrion Ware's fighting some talented bantamweights, but he got the short end of the stick in both of his UFC fights. Now he's going to be fighting the Fire Kid Tom Duquesnoy, who's 15 wins, 2 losses in his professional career, 1-1 in the UFC, so 1 win, 1 loss. His only loss also came to Cody Stamann. Both of these guys fought Cody Stamann. Both of these guys lost to Cody Stamann, but as I just said, Cody Stamann's now in the top 10 of the division. So Tom Duquesnoy's only loss came to Cody Stamann via split decision, but he also has a win in the UFC. Now, you know, they usually say MMA math doesn't work, like, oh, just because, you know, this guy beat this guy, it doesn't mean he can also beat someone else that he beat. But I think MMA math works here because both fighters have fought Cody Stamann. So I think if both fighters have fought the same person in a, in a recent time frame, like both of these guys fought Cody Stamann within the last year and a half, and you can take the performances and you can compare them. So, you know, one thing that it did happen is Tom Duquesnoy fought to a split decision with Cody Stamann, and I believe Cody Stamann also scored more takedowns on Terrion Ware. So Tom Duquesnoy probably did a little better versus Cody Stamann, and I'm going to be picking Tom Duquesnoy to get the win here. He's shown he can get a win in the UFC, so he'll probably have momentum on his side in that aspect. And Terrion Ware on the 2-fight losing streak in the UFC. Lost to Sean O'Malley, Cody Stamann. So yeah, I'm going to be picking Tom Duquesnoy to get the win here. It's going to be a tough fight. I'm sure it's going to be a close fight. I believe Tom Duquesnoy might be at home as well. I think he's from Wales. I'm not sure. I might be mistaken. But either way, I'm picking Tom Duquesnoy to edge out that fight. It's going to be probably a closer fight than a lot of the other, maybe some of the other fights on the card, like the co-main event, Jimmy Manuwa versus Jan Blachowicz, and maybe even, yeah, some of the other fights. But Tom Duquesnoy's getting the nod on my predictions. Now moving to the co-main event, Jimmy Manuwa versus Jan Blachowicz. Jan Blachowicz is the number 11th ranked light heavyweight in the world. 21 wins and 7 losses. 4 wins in the UFC, 4 losses in the UFC. Jan Blachowicz is riding a 2-fight winning streak over Devin Clark and Jared Cannonier. Now, this is a rematch to a fight that has happened before. In the first fight, Jimmy Manuwa won via KO. Jimmy Manuwa is now the number 4th ranked light heavyweight in the UFC. 17 wins and only 3 losses in his career. Jimmy Manuwa is 6-3 in the UFC, so he's got a better professional and better UFC resume as far as records are concerned. Jimmy Manuwa was most recently riding a 2-fight winning streak on his way to a title shot before being knocked out by Volkan Ozdemir at UFC 214 in July of 2017. So that was Jimmy Manuwa's most recent fight, that knockout loss. And as I said, this is a rematch. Manuwa knocked out Blachowicz back in 2015. And since then, Jimmy Manuwa has been fighting top 5 to top 10 guys. But he just seems to lose at the cusp of the title shot. Manuwa's coming off of that KO loss, but he's had plenty of time to recover, which is great to me. You know, in my opinion, compared to being knocked out or fighting in a slugfest and getting right back in there a few months later, like we saw with Yancy Medeiros. Yancy Medeiros had that fucking fight of the year contender with Cowboy Oliveira, and 3 months later we saw him fighting Cowboy Cerrone. And here, Volkan Ozdemir, you know, he got knocked out, or not Volkan Ozdemir. Volkan Ozdemir knocked out Jimmy Manuwa, but it was back in July of last year, so he's had almost a year off, you know, 8 to 9 months to heal up before getting into training camp. So Jimmy Manuwa's had time, you know, to let his yolk settle a little bit after getting his eggs scrambled, if you know what I'm saying. So Jimmy Manuwa, I'm picking to get the win here. And he's already got this win before, on top of being at home. Jimmy Manuwa's also at home. Now, we've got to get into Fabricio Werdum versus Alexander Volkov, and I know you guys hear that fucking puppy out there tearing something up. Sounds like he's fucking something up, so we're gonna let him fuck that up and we'll get him after this. But Fabricio Werdum versus Alexander Volkov. Yo, Alexander Volkov, when we just kind of skimmed over this earlier, I thought I was going to be picking Fabricio Werdum, his last 2 fights, over Walt Harris, and also most recently Marcin Tybura. Fabricio Werdum both of them have looked like flawless victories. Fabricio Werdum submitted Walt Harris in the first round, short notice fight. Derek Lewis was 1 second. All right, I'm gonna get this puppy. Be right back. Alright, as I was saying, so Fabricio Werdum submitted Walt Harris. It was a short notice fight. Walt Harris replaced Derek Lewis, who had a back injury, submitted him in the first round. After that, Fabricio Werdum took a short notice fight versus Marcin Tybura when Mark Hunt had to fall out of the fight. So Fabricio stepped in to fight Marcin Tybura, won a 5-round decision. So he showed he can get the finish, or he can take it 5 rounds and still cruise to a unanimous decision. Fabricio Werdum, also one of the most legendary resumes in the UFC. I gotta pull that up for you actually. And this is Alexander Volkov, who I'm gonna have to show you guys why I switched my pick to Fabricio. But Fabricio Werdum, look at his resume. It's absolutely, when you look, this is easily probably one of the best resumes of all time. Now, is Fabricio Werdum the best heavyweight of all time? I don't know. I would probably give that nod to Stipe Miocic as of right now, because Stipe beat Fabricio. But when you're talking about resume, man, you've got to give it up to Fabricio Werdum. Yo, check this out. Fabricio Werdum, alright. So, I gotta expand full history on him. Like I said, Marcin Tybura, Walt Harris, that loss to Alistair Overeem is really a win. You can see on the fight metrics, Fabricio Werdum outstruck and scored takedowns on Overeem, but the judges gave the fight to Overeem. I think Adelaide Bird was working that night, because I had the fight for Fabricio. I think a lot of people might have, but they say you never should leave it in the hands of the judges, and that's what happened here. So Fabricio Werdum got robbed that night, or he would be on a 4-fight winning streak since losing his UFC heavyweight title. So you got Fabricio Werdum's only loss in his last, let's see, since 2012, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then you count that one 10. Fabricio Werdum is 10-1 in his last 11 fights, not counting this Alistair Overeem, because that was a win. So he's a fucking legend. And you go down and you look at some of the names that Fabricio Werdum has fought. Of course, the most recent names, but he's fought Alistair Overeem, Travis Brown. Just listen to the fucking historic, just contending heavyweight names: Stipe Miocic, Cain Velasquez, Mark Hunt, Travis Brown again, Minotauro Nogueira, Roy Nelson, Mike Russo. But listen, Alistair Overeem, Fedor, he's fought both the fucking Fedor, the Emelianenko brothers, Fedor Emelianenko, Antonio Silva, fucking Junior Dos Santos, all of these, you know, but he fought before outside the UFC, Andrei Arlovsky, Gabriel Gonzaga, Alexander Emelianenko. I mean, holy shit, Alistair Overeem again, they fought 3 times, and really Fabricio won 2 of them, but Alistair Overeem got that, you know, that nod in the last fight, unfortunately. But holy smokes, I mean, but the thing about, with all of these names comes time, comes damage, and comes age. Fabricio Werdum, you see, is 40 years old. Now, if Fabricio Werdum was just fighting a Walt Harris or a Marcin Tybura, which you might assume is happening, because a lot of people don't know Alexander Volkov's name. You don't know his fucking actual resume until you go into it, like I just did. So Marcin Tybura, I mean, you thought he's a solid fighter, you know. He had some UFC fights, 3 UFC wins, kind of like Volkov, but let me tell you, it's just not the same. All right, now it's time to go into Alexander Volkov's resume, who's going to be Fabricio Werdum's opponent. All right, you can go out now, dog. All right, so this is Alexander Volkov right here. He's only 29 years old with 29 wins and 6 losses as a heavyweight. Very active, young heavyweight from Russia. So he's about to fuck shit up. I'm telling you right now, striking in jiu-jitsu. So I was thinking, okay, he's clearly going to have the striking advantage in this fight. You know what I'm saying? Even though Fabricio outstruck Marcin Tybura, there's levels to this shit. Look at his striking. I mean, outstruck Stefan Struve. We saw Andrei Arlovsky did a good job for Stefan Struve recently. Roy Nelson, he clipped him up. Roy Nelson's got an iron chin, can't knock him out. Timothy Johnson is kind of one of Volkov's, I don't want to say his worst matchups, but Timothy Johnson does have a split decision loss to Tony Johnson in Bellator, where he tried to just hold him against the cage. And, you know, people who, like Timothy Johnson in his last fight, whose game plan is to kind of wear you out and tire you out and take you down, that's who has had the most success against Volkov. Even though they haven't had much success, they've had some. You see, that was a split decision versus Timothy Johnson, and that was his game plan in his last fight. And then versus Tony Johnson in Bellator, unrelated, that was a similar game plan. So with that being said, that's not going to be Fabricio's game plan. I don't think, but we got to go to Sherdog for this. So you see he's got wins over Stefan Struve, Roy Nelson, and Volkov in the UFC. Still a young guy, picking up UFC Ws. Now let's fucking go to fucking Sherdog for his official resume. He's on a 5-fight winning streak. He's not been fighting in slouch organizations, M1 and Bellator. So his losses come to Tony Johnson and Czech Congo. As I said, Tony Johnson, that was a split decision loss, sort of like his Timothy Johnson loss. In that fight, Tony Johnson was holding him against the cage. Fucking Alexander Volkov was landing front kicks, almost took him out, landed nice knees on his way in. Volkov was looking good, but he lost the split decision. It could have been a rivalry. I only watched the first round, and I was like, oh, okay, so, this game, because it wasn't, whenever someone has that game plan, it's not the most entertaining. Tony Johnson was trying to hold him against the fence. Volkov was still having his moments, but that's all I needed to see to realize, oh, this guy's the real deal. So now you go down. He's been fighting in Bellator. You see the M1 fights and the Bellator fights. So at first I was like, oh, he's only got a couple fights in Bellator, and then I don't know much about this. But look, Bellator. This motherfucker was fighting for Bellator for a while, getting W's, and it's not over scrubs. You click these names, their records are not shit. Like, he was fighting guys that were like 17-3. Like, he's fighting legitimate heavyweights, and this is the heavyweight division. So, I mean, you got to think, even at the highest fucking skill level in the heavyweights, anything can happen, because you connect one time and a motherfucker goes out. And this guy's a very experienced striker. I mean, those were not the best to click on, but I just clicked on some of these dudes down here, man. He's been fighting some other experienced heavyweights. So it's not like he's actually, if you look at it, has more experience than Fabricio. It's not the same legendary names, but look, 29 wins, 23 wins, 6 losses, 7 losses. So he's actually got a better record than Fabricio, even though it's not over the same legendary names. But age has to play a factor in this. You got to think about Frankie Edgar versus Brian Ortega most recently. Yeah, you think Frankie Edgar's going to get the W, but everybody's got their time. And Fabricio's 40 years old. I mean, also, even though he's looked good in his last 2 fights, Fabricio recently was talking about signing with the WWE even and shit. So if Fabricio does lose this fight, he might fuck around and go fight Colby Covington in the WWE, or he might just move on and have fun outside of his career. I don't know if Fabricio's gonna make it back to a title shot. I know that's what he wants to make it back to. But that split decision loss versus Overeem, then we got DC fighting for the heavyweight title. Then it's Brock Lesnar or John Jones coming back. I mean, then you got Volk. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that would have to happen for Fabricio to get his heavyweight title shot that he wants, which could happen, but he's 40 years old, so time is not on his side here. And he's got a fucking killer in front of him in Alexander Volkov, who has some experience. He's fought some experienced guys. Fucking very skilled fighter. It's not a Walt Harris, you know what I'm saying, or even a Marcin Tibora. This guy, man, I think is going to give Fabricio problems, because you got to think about the matchup. What is Fabricio's path to victory here? He's not going to, like the guys, Timothy Johnson and Tony Johnson, they were both trying to use their wrestling and hold him against the fence and wear him out and take him down. And other than that, his only losses to Czech Congo probably overpowered him. I don't know. I didn't see the Czech Congo fight. It was unanimous decision, but Czech Congo's, kind of a beast over there. And it was back in the day, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. So, I mean, what I'm saying though is Alexander Volkov is probably going to come in here and I know he's going to do a lot better than we expected, because I didn't realize his fucking resume. But I think he might be coming here and get the win. And as I was saying about Fabricio Werdum's path to victory, what is he gonna? He's not gonna shoot a fucking like crazy double leg takedown. You know what I'm saying? That's not his game. He's got great jiu-jitsu, but to get the fight to the ground, how's he gonna do it here versus Volkov? Volkov has seen the veteran tricks. He's, what are you gonna do? Try and trip him? He's like, what I'm saying is he's experienced enough for Fabricio to have to really figure out how to get this fight to the ground. And, because that's what you would think. He's going to get the fight to the ground and submit him. Like, that's going to be Fabricio's best chance in this fight. He's not going to outstrike Alexander Volkov. So if this fight doesn't get to the ground, and even if it does, Alexander Volkov, he's got solid jiu-jitsu. I mean, whenever you look at his UFC profile, striking and jiu-jitsu, he's probably not going to be trying to shoot a takedown on you, but he can defend himself if it does go to the ground. So I think Alexander Volkov is probably going to win this fight just because I'm like thinking about how the fight's going to play out. I really don't see how Fabricio can win at this point without a submission. You know what I'm saying? And if that's the case, how's he going to get the fight to the ground? Volkov's experienced enough, and you're not just going to submit him if you do get him down there. You're still going to have to earn the submission. So holy flying flipping flapjacks, I did not expect to be picking Alexander Volkov in this fight, but I think kind of like when Donald Cerrone fought Darren Till and nobody really knew who Darren Till was going into the fight, and now everyone realizes, oh shit, Darren Till could be a future champion. I think that might happen here with Alexander Volkov, because he's got some serious skills and some serious experience to only be 29 years old, which is very young for the heavyweight division. So I had to switch my pick to Alexander Volkov. Now you guys know why. And if he's the underdog coming into this fight, I'm about to bet some fucking low-key, some fake money in my fake money bankroll series. So make sure you check that out. This is the UFC London. This card's going to be on Fight Pass. This is the predictions. I do think Alexander Volkov is going to come in here and upset a lot of people. It's going to be crazy. So with that being said, it is what it is. Let the full-time family know what you think in the comments. And again, thank you for watching. I'm out. And as always, thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the subscribe button and also hit the notification bell right next to it so you're notified every time I upload a video. I'm out.
Da 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 da. It's the motherfucking DOG.